But you know, our Mood of the Nation survey, Dr. Basu, which we did earlier in August, seemed to suggest people were satisfied with the Modi government's economic performance. So, you know, this grim picture that is being seen in the numbers, the Prime Minister still retains a lot of political capital. This paradox, a grim economic situation but high confidence in the Prime Minister, does that work to India's advantage, or is it time to shake off this complacency that could set in?
It is both. It is, you do want, the Indian government is good at communication vis-a-vis India. So what you are seeing, the mood, is a reflection of the fact that the communication is good and positive. So Indians feel relatively buoyant by that. But beyond a point, that can become deception. Global observers, for instance, the management of the pandemic, now that I'm sitting outside, everyone is observing that actually it was a very poor management of the pandemic, with part of the population completely frozen and part of the population completely scattered all over the country and actually moving in a way they've never moved before, which is a strange use of the word lockdown when they are moving. Those things, India, sitting in India, because the communication is so good, people very often don't realize. At one level, in the short run, that is good, the mood remains buoyant. But in the long run, unless you see the real numbers, unless you confront reality, this can actually begin to do damage. You can begin to move into a cocooned world where you're living in an imaginary state. So what the government has to do, yes, you want to keep up the positive conversation. You don't want to damage people's mood. At the same time, you have to give out the numbers. You have to point to the fact that no, India's not just slowing down like everyone else is slowing down. India's losing rank. These are things that have to be pointed out so that you can then bring in corrective measures, severe corrective measures.
You know, Dr. Basu, the government says it's identified 18 strategic sectors where it will retain only a limited presence. Do you see this also as another opportunity to push ahead, let's say with stronger privatization? Or do you fear, as some are saying, that few business houses are cornering all the benefits and this is only leading to some form of cronyism?
See, privatization, if you can then create a completely level playing field and the government is completely fair so that the small entrepreneur sitting in a small town gets as much scope as the big corporation, that kind of privatization in many sectors in India, I think would be worthwhile. My fear is that if government meddles in this privatization, you will move into crony capitalism. And crony capitalism we've seen in Middle Eastern economies, we've seen happen in Marcos's Philippines, we've seen it across the world. Crony capitalism is a deadly infliction for the economy. And there is the risk of this, that if it is privatization without complete fairness, if the government is heavy-handed, then we will gradually move into a crony capitalist system, which is going to be disaster for the economy.
One final question. Listening to you today has been fascinating, but viewers who are listening in will feel that you're talking about a glass half empty. Are you being unduly pessimistic or simply telling Indians it's time to look at the mirror and face a reality check?
It is the latter. I'm pointing out that the glass is indeed half empty, and there are no two ways of looking at it. And people should now realize and then put pressure, not just on policymakers, on communities, on building up trust once again across society, so that the damage to the economy, which has happened over the last, say, 4 years, 5 years, and very deeply during the pandemic, we begin to rectify that. We can't sit back and say everything is fine. So and most of this is in terms of numbers that I'm scouring all the time. We need that awareness, and I'm just reminding people that let us keep up the positive mood, but look at the numbers, bring professionalism back into the marketplace.